Naramata Centre was started in 1947, and a lot of it was credited to Bob McLaren. Bob McLaren was a minister in the United Church of Canada from Alberta. As a minister, he really wanted to contribute to a place of Christian leadership development. A lot of the post-war families and institution building that happened in the late 40s and 50s happened with that generation, and there was an enormous amount of donations, volunteerism, large families coming back, starting, building the new life here in the 40s and 50s, and it really formed the foundation and the basis for the centre's future.
They were here with others, of course. Primarily, there was my dad, Roy Stobie, who was a minister in Penticton at the time, and Bob Wallace, but Clyde Woolard, he graduated Yale, and Charlie Burrett. And they were the prime movers, and really what they were builders. They bought a big chunk of land and all the way to the beach. So they skidded the army barracks up and began to build a shop that would eventually build all the houses, and began to put together a place where people could come.
It had been in operation 20 years by the time I was there. It was a vision of Bob McLaren. He took seriously that people have a spark of the divine in them. He took seriously that people have gifts. Everyone has gifts, and help people discover them. So there's always been that theme of developing that which you have inside as a response to the call from God.
Everyone sort of positions themselves at a certain decade in the centre's history. And for a lot of us, we're like, that's the Naramata Centre, and they sort of fix the Naramata Centre in time. So if you think about the 60s and the 70s, it was probably the heyday when we had the greatest number of families, the greatest number of staff. The place was really hopping. 400, 450 people on site, 40 to 50 staff on site, year-round operations. And then that basis in the 60s and 70s really formed the sort of the foundation of an intergenerational family camp.
There's 4 generations now who have been in our family that have been participating here in leadership, taking courses. Both my kids were in winter session, and that again was a real growing experience for them. And for me, I became very interested in the healing pathway, so I went through the healing pathway program and got I think my 4th level, and I have turned that into healing ministry at a church, as well as my own practice in my home.
What happens in the 70s is you get a bit more of the humanist movement and human development, and trying to facilitate how do we provide courses and experiences, particularly to young adults, to youth and young adults, that will provide a path for their sort of optimal spiritual and social development. The centre has this long history of being the sort of front runner of social issues, whether that's Indigenous relations or the environment or LGBTQ inclusivity. The centre has always been leading that edge and pushing to whatever the next challenge is, to educate young people and our next generation of leaders to tackle societal problems of the day.
Take on the world. We're gonna take on the world.
So I spent 3.5 months at Naramata that summer, and just the leaders that were around me and the people that are still here were so accepting, and also pushed us to grow, that what you have is great, but you can also go bigger with where your personal growth is at. And they provided us not just like big goals, but tangible goals. And so actually this year I got into UBC for midwifery, and I honestly do think it's because of the skills I learned last summer. And I think I can basically thank Naramata.
Now when we look at how the center is reshaping itself, we're asking the question anew, where is the need? What are the leaders of tomorrow and young people and young adults today? What is the best education, opportunity, and experience that we can provide so that they feel empowered and enabled to be in service? I hear weekly from people who want to share their story. I've been coming since 1962. I've been coming since 1978. I've been coming since 1984. I've been coming since 1996. I came when I was 17. I was summer staff. I did winter session. I get to hear the cumulative impact that this place has had on generations.
I started coming here when I was about 9. And that's sort of when I remember. And it was an invitation from another family to my family to come. And so I came with my family, my mom and my dad and my sister. And my sense that I can remember was the sense of freedom. It was like coming to this place that had been stuck in time. There was no sidewalks. It was dark at night. You could see the stars, and you could run around, and you would find other kids, and then we'd create a pack of kids, and we would just be on our bikes and running around and in the water and in community, surrounded. So I just remember feeling free and safe and part of something, and that felt really good as a child.
About 1970 would have been the first visit, as far as I can tell. My memory through the years has been that basically every day there was some period of focus on that. So the children and youth programs in the mornings, or the courses that the adults took in the mornings. But then the evenings would be about intergenerational activities. And so there would be facilitated games, or sometimes other things, artistic, activities that adults, your parents, your grandparents, and other adults in the group would do together. That was clear to me. That was always a focus, to try to encourage the intergenerational interactions.
Winter Session is a program for young adults. It's 3 months in the winter time. So in the off season, when nobody's here, for me, I was coming during a time of my life where it was about self-exploration and autonomy and kind of stepping into my own and creating a foundation for myself in that transition out of teenagerdom into young adulthood. So for me, it was really seminal in terms of creating a foundation. So we learned about leadership, we learned about Enneagram, we worked with the First Nations communities here, we did music, we did a whole bunch of stuff.
So I came to Naramata for the first time when I was 2 weeks old, and my family, we have a large family, there were 4 kids at that point, and my sister came 2 years later, had been coming since the 70s. So when we came in the early 80s, throughout my childhood and into the 90s. The last time I came here, I was 18. It was the year before I sort of left as an adult and went off into the world. And so I came every summer for minimum a week, sometimes 2 weeks. And we stayed a little bit all over the center. And it was always a time of connecting with family.
I like to say Naramata raised me. My new year was every time I left Naramata. It wasn't in the new year or the start or end of the school year. I would leave Naramata thinking about what was going to happen the next time I came back. I always told everybody if I ran away, this is where I came, because it was safe to be here and it was safe to be me here. I developed my voice here.
When we think about our community, it's a community that is in service. We spend time here in Naramata and at the center to rejuvenate and to dig roots down into the soil and pull up that spiritual water, to be surrounded by community, to let go of that hamster wheel mind that we have in the cities, to get refocused and reconnected with who we are and what we're called to be in the world. And really that's what the center does, is it provides a space for renewal for individuals, for families, for groups, for children, for youth. You're going to find in yourself what gives you energy or inspires you. when you're here. And then when you get home, we want you to carry that forth, bring that out in your community. That's the real gift. That's the benefit of being at the center for any length of time, is the service and the work that you do when you come back home. That in turn, we hope, inspires others to come back and our community grows. We're in such good partnership with this community. The community is so strong. The Cheetah Slow movement here, with everything they're doing to really slow down our rate of consumption, appreciate nature, appreciate each other. The local agriculture and wineries are super supportive of one another. We host a fantastic harvest supper in October with 200 people on Columbia lawn, massive table. All the bounty of the harvest comes together. The community and the center just celebrate one another. We're so lucky to be here.